Strange wooden carving? Check. Pilot on duty? Check. Bathroom stop completed? Check. Navigational charts and terrain? Check. Grill extinguished and cleaned. Campfire removed. Tent? We'll just leave it here. We don't need it anymore. Last and certainly not least, location. We are here at the base of the Rocky Mountain Range in Idaho at 3 Uniform 2, also known as Johnson Creek Airport, and we're headed out today, not very far away, to 2 Uniform 8, Thomas Creek Airport. Let's go ahead and hop on board our aircraft, get this show on the road. Thanks for joining us today here at the channel, and check. And welcome to the lower left corner and tablet of the FSReborn Sting S4. This is an ultralight aircraft. There are multiple engine variants for this aircraft, but I believe we have the 912 Rotax power today. I wanted to show you a little bit on this tab before we start this machine up. The level of study here, detail-wise, is incredible. You've got all kinds of items here you can keep track of, which do actually wear through the wear and tear system that this simulation provides. Not only do you have electrics, you have engine, landing gear, fuel and payload with persistent last fuel and payload quantity save states. And we can also hop over to the engine maintenance tab. Now what I also like about this is the descriptors here. I like how it's not just pictures with points you can click on and trying to figure things out on your own. You can clearly read a little bit about it, and you can perform the maintenance by clicking the button. As you can see, I've already had this engine running for 10 minutes just to hear this Rotax power, and I pressed the perform maintenance to see how it worked, and it said just in correlation to the tachometer, last maintenance 10 minutes ago. Excellent. So of course each and every page is unique, has really cool pictures on it and really cool descriptions, so you can see exactly what's going on here. So the settings, of course, are also selectable. So if you don't like the gallons, you can use the liters, pounds to kilograms, so on and so forth. It also has an option for the PMS50 GTN 750 Garmin display. We don't have that today. I'm just operating on the basic Asobo gauges, or what was provided in this craft from just downloading and installing it. It has a ballistic rescue system, which is indeed a parachute, so you can use that in the event of a dire emergency to float back to Earth. That is simulated, so we're hopefully not going to have to use that today, but it is a cool feature and the first in the simulator, at least at the time of this video, that I've seen. And this craft also has the new Asobo simulated propeller physics, so we're going to go ahead and take this entire combination here, and we'll just give it a run for its money. We'll head out to 2 Uniform 8 and we'll just see how the day goes, and we'll try to enjoy it for what it is. So let's go ahead and start this machine up. Alright, so to get this craft fired up, let's go ahead and do a couple things first. Let's put the propeller lever to full forward. I'm going to come down here and turn on our fuel supply. And then I'm just going to reach forward to the centered stack, turn on the main. I'll turn on our nav lights to let anybody know who may be in the area camping that we are about to depart for the active. And then I'll also turn on our auxiliary fuel pump here. Let's go ahead and prime this engine just a little bit with some fuel. That about does it for me. Let's turn on our instrument avionics suite here. Let's go ahead and grab a stab of brakes here and fire this machine up. And just like that, the engine is alive. We're checking out our oil PSI. We're in the green. Oil temperature rising. Of course, we're making 14 volts, so alternator is working. Plenty of indicated fuel quantity, and we're going to wait till our cylinder head temperature comes up to operating range. One thing I'd like to mention about this craft is that there's a really neat feature here where we can basically use touchscreen everything here is touchscreen. So I said earlier, we're heading out to Uniform 8. We'll go ahead and select that. We'll activate it. As you can see, it's only 23.4 nautical miles, so we're not headed very far. I'll take this opportunity to squawk on the active. Transmit receive 1200 Unicom code. Fantastic. And then we'll just sit here and wait for our engine to warm up. Also verifying. A little bit over 3/4 of a fuel tank indicated. Fantastic. And now that you've heard the audio sounds with the canopy open, let's go ahead and quiet this interior up just a little bit. I do love the texturing in here. It is highly detailed, for sure. Alright, so what I'm going to do is let the engine warm up, and when we're ready to go, I'll taxi out to the active, and then I'll bring you guys right back as soon as we're ready to go. Catch you in just a second. Alright, and just like that, you're back. So, let's go ahead and do a couple things before we take to the skies today. I'm going to turn on our strobe lights while we're at it. I'll throw in a notch of flaps. I'll turn on our auxiliary fuel pump there. Let's go ahead and perform an engine run-up test. What do you say we turn off one of them magnetos? Got a drop, so that means it was working. Back to both. And a rise. And let's try the right. Fantastic. It seems as though we have 2 functioning magnetos. Go ahead and activate our, what I believe is the pitot heat. Come back to idle here. I'm going to call out our departure on air traffic control. And I'm just going to say we're heading straight out of town.
Traffic November 184 Whiskey Alpha taking off runway 17 straight out departure.
All right. Of course, no traffic inbound there. Look over our left-hand shoulder here and make sure there's no one on final in this direction, and there's none. Alright, what do you say we get going? Calling up full power. Yes, indeed. Airspeed's alive, indicated. Coming through 40 knots. 50. 60. And we're off just like that. What a smooth flying aircraft. 70 knots, positive rate. I'm going to go ahead and pull that degree of flaps up there. We'll climb just a little bit to get over this valley that we're in. I suspect it may be a turbulent flight, to say the least, because of the thermals in this mountain range. We do have clouds, and it's hot enough to have bumpy chops today, so that's okay. We'll come back out of the RPM range in red. We'll slow our propeller down, experience those new propeller physics. And as soon as I trim off for level flight, I'm going to go ahead and remove our auxiliary fuel pump from functioning. Now this is an aircraft that's said to be carbureted, so we're going to make sure that we don't starve the engine of fuel, which apparently is simulated, especially if you fly inverted. So we'll just keep that in mind and behave while we're going on our journey today through these mountainous regions. As always, I appreciate you being here on the channel and checking out this content. Feel free to throw a like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments section if you enjoyed what you're seeing. I know I'm really entertained by this craft itself. It is an awesome simulated machine. And we are certainly well on our way to Uniform 8. Just head over here and buzz these trees, getting some low-level scenery while we can. And as choppy and turbulent as it is through these mountains here, the plane flies very well. This right here is, of course you'll have to take my word for it, but this is hands-off flight. I'm not touching a thing except an occasional change in trim settings. You can see that by looking down towards the bottom center of the screen. There's the flight yoke, as it were. I'm not moving it. It's all trim. Also, looking out over the canopy there, straight through the front glass, the textures in this are incredible. I mean, that dashboard looks about as real as anything I've ever seen in terms of texturing, for sure. So this aircraft has the maximum ceiling of 16,000 feet, and it is carbureted. There's no upper deck pressure in this engine for the Rotax power, and by that I mean there's no boost, no supercharger, no turbocharging. So we're just dealing with gulping in straight air. So we have to keep that in mind. Limits our performance just a little bit, but that's quite alright. We're here for the views on views today, not so much the 3 million horsepower. And just like that, we're 20.5 nautical miles with a 13-minute 50-second ETE or thereabouts. Shouldn't be long. Of course, I always love these scenic locations. In the videos, I always try to bring places that are a sight to see. I feel that it adds to the content and the experience of, you know, looking out the windows, because when you're in the simulator of this high fidelity, meaning Microsoft Flight Simulator by Asobo, and a DLC aircraft of this level, I just figure the scenery and the aircraft kind of go hand in hand. Hopefully you feel the same. I'm going to go ahead and take the opportunity to hop outside here and grab some exterior shots. I'll throw on the autopilot. We'll pick up this magenta GPS line here as we turn right very briefly, and just go ahead and get some exterior visuals for you. So let's do that now. Alright, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed the scenery of the aircraft and the plane combined, of course. It hasn't been long, so we are just under 13 nautical miles from where we last were. And we are flying the magenta track, as you can see in the center stack, right on our avionics suite, right towards our field. Things are all in the green, as you can see. So we're using 2.3 gallons per hour. That is quite low. Although the craft does not hold an excessive amount of fuel, still 2.3 is quite low. You can see our RPM as well on the left-hand Garmin screen is quite high. That's just a normal operating RPM range for a Rotax engine, as it were. And to go back to the fuel gallons per hour at 2.3, you can see in the left-hand screen there, all the way on the bottom, fuel quantity 25.6 gallons in total. That pretty much tells you just the kind of endurance that this machine has at the current power settings, at this altitude, at this weather condition state. Very efficient, economical aircraft, but as it's stated that this machine is approximately 85% carbon fiber build, it's very light. I think one could argue the aspect that the window here is quite large. So if you're going to go on any scenic tours, I would say this would be the aircraft of consideration, serious consideration. It is a truly stunning world that we live in, for sure. As it were, I'm just hovering here at almost 90 knots. 9,370 feet above sea level. So, that's always good. Just above the mountaintops here. Although it looks like we're approaching a swath of clouds, that's quite alright because we only have 8 miles to go, so we're not going to hopefully experience too much weather. Certainly these would be considered VFR or visual flight rules. Virtual flight rules. I mean, I guess this is virtual flight rules, right? We are in a simulation here, so that's okay as well. You know, since we're 7.5 nautical miles out, I'm going to go ahead and stay ahead of myself in the aircraft here and throw on our landing lights as well as our auxiliary fuel pump. I apologize if there's any extra noises there. And let me apologize again. I thought that I would be able to listen to that, but it is quite loud, so let's go ahead and not do that for now. Plenty of time to worry about that. I'm going to go ahead and remove the autopilot and just experience the aircraft a little bit more manually and flying this machine. I like the Garmin synthetic vision we have on our displays too. It definitely is a navigational aid visually in inclement conditions, of course. I have no doubt that this craft is fully capable of bad landing conditions in terms of atmospheric weather, especially with synthetic vision. So I'm just slowly pulling power back here so that we don't get too fast in our descent. 5 nautical miles. And I'll go ahead and re-engage the autopilot for a brief moment here. Let the aircraft take over while I call out here to Uniform 8, Thomas Creek. We're going to select the runway and winds are minimal today, so let's go ahead and scope out how we're going to come in. Let's say we're going to take runway 3 approach.
2 Uniform 8 traffic November 184 Whiskey Alpha, 4 miles northwest, 8,600 feet, inbound to land runway tree.
So right now, you can see we're almost flying completely perpendicular with the runway there, so we're going to intersect it right at almost midfield. I'm going to go ahead and correct that, so we'll steer right of it just a little bit. Switch on over to heading mode. Of course, close this ATC window. Do not want to block the awesome view that we have. We'll say right about there, about 190 degrees from now. And you can tell our landing spot is in between these valleys, just as it was at 3 Uniform 2 where we took off. And I'll go ahead and cut out that autopilot. Basically going to fly as best I can above these mountains here, and then bring in an approach hopefully in between these valleys here. I've never been to this airport before. Just looked like an interesting location, but there's a first time for everything, I suppose. So we're flying past the airport now just to give ourselves plenty of final approach. You can see our magenta line way behind us off to our left quarter rear there. So we'll make that left turn shortly. And I'll go ahead, since it's not a busy traffic day, and call up the ATC at that point. Let them know we're on final for runway 3. I'll probably make my left turn just as we're approaching this mountaintop here, right in front of us. Close one, of course. Next one's just a little bit too far away. Alright, so let's go ahead real quick and throw the autopilot heading back on briefly. And then I'm going to come down here again and say 2 Uniform 8, and then I'll swap over to navigation mode on the autopilot. And we'll go ahead and turn that off. I was trying to have it pick up the airport, but all I really wanted was the magenta line direct route straight in. But we'll save ourselves the headache of worrying about what's going on with that, and we'll just come in for that straight approach. So 4 nautical miles away, not far. Let's go ahead and announce our arrival. And once again, I have to apologize for the auxiliary fuel pump noise that's about to come on. Okay. In the white arc on the speed range, so I'm going to throw in a notch of flaps. Just readjust my view a tad here. And as you can tell, this aircraft can fly quite slow, especially based off of the principle that we're doing just below 60 knots and we're still in flap range. So I don't suspect this plane should have any problem stopping on a strip down below. You may see it at about our 2:30 to 3 o'clock position there, right after I make this right hand turn. And of course that's not me too much on the controls. That indeed is the thermals we're experiencing from the mountain ranges here, of course. Flying at just about 51 knots, quite slow. Very interesting though.
500.
I'm gonna go and give ahead a little bit of left rudder. Try to side slip somewhat. That way we can maintain a slower speed as we're approaching. Give myself some space shuttle-esque turns here. Of course, those on the ground are probably thinking, what's that guy doing? He said he was on final approach, but that's okay. We like to keep things interesting here on the channel. So, and now I'm sure you can tell, just off our 12 o'clock position is the strip that we're headed for. It is indeed dirt, excuse me, so not much difference from the location we departed from. And I'm going to go ahead and try to swing a little right and then skirt this mountain range right in front of us and then basically turn left, of course,
500.
so that we can avoid at our 11 o'clock that little ridge there, of course. Okay, and there it is. Even the slow flight dynamics of this plane you would think might be hard to control, but it's not. So flying at a lower speed is actually more comforting than anything else because we know we're coming in right next to the mountain range and making this right-hand turn, so we don't want to carry a lot of speed through this because we do want to be able to stop before we hit those trees at the end. That would be nice. 55 knots, basically lined up. Finish out with the flare. And we're down. Just like that. So let's go ahead and turn that auxiliary pump noise off. Thanks a lot. We'll taxi back to this barn here. I see other aircraft, so I'm thinking that's where this aircraft should be left. Let's go ahead and not blind people and turn off our landing lights. And as you can see, the valley we approach through, quite an epic approach. I like the turns right before final. Keeps things crispy and active. Got some aircraft tie downs there. I'm just gonna go ahead and mellow out right here. Alright, so let's go ahead and shut the aircraft down. I'll give some more ambient noise by opening the top there. Bring the propeller back. Let's go ahead and strobes, nav. And since there's no mixture control, I'm just gonna fuel cutoff. Alright, perfect time to remove the instruments, the main, and bring our key back to the off position. So there you have it. 3 uniform 2, direct to uniform 8. In this awesome aircraft, I would highly recommend it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and until the next time, thanks for watching. See you later.